And good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Russell City Reparative Justice Project Steering Committee meeting. Today is Wednesday, April 12th, 2023. And thank you for joining us. We'll begin with roll call. So Ms. Gloria Moore.
Present.
Thank you. Ayanna Knowles noted that she would not be able to join us this evening. Michael V. Johnson.
Present.
Thank you. I am present. Deborah Harris. Okay. Marion Johnson.
Present.
Thank you. Liz Moran Sanchez. She also noted she would not be able to join us tonight. Tony Nguyen.
Present.
Thank you. Carolyn Johnson.
Present.
Thank you. Michael D. Johnson.
Present.
Thank you. Cindy Torres. Priscilla Figueroa.
Present.
Thank you. Kathy Rodriguez. Francesca Thomas.
Present.
Thank you. And Velda Go.
Present.
Thank you.
A quorum has now been established.
Thank you very much. And with regards to the city staff members present, Ms. Regina Youngblood, Assistant City Manager.
Yes, here.
Thank you. And Jenny Chacon, the Equity and Inclusion Officer. Not present. All right. And Ms. Youngblood, will any additional city staff members be present this evening?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right. So for those of you who are joining us and or will be watching this via YouTube or via broadcast later, please note that the representatives of or the members of the steering committee are former residents and descendants of Russell City who were elected to serve on this committee. And we are sharing opinions and thoughts and memories on behalf of residents and descendants of those who lived in Russell City. And there may be things that are shared in this meeting that represent memories, trauma, joy, pain. There may be times where we have to pause the meeting and go into further discussion, breakout rooms. And so please be patient with us, as this is the first time that we are participating in this process, and we continue to learn and grow with each meeting that goes by. So we are glad you're joining us. That concludes the first, second, and third. Well, and the third item on the agenda is that this meeting is being recorded. All right. So item number 4, that concludes the first part of the opening of the meeting. And my name is Aisha Knowles, and I serve as the steering committee chair. The 4th item on the meeting agenda is an update from the researchers. And we have a hand that is raised prior to moving on. Ms. Velda, yes.
Yes, I'm just, this is only my second meeting, so I'm just trying to get the paperwork stuff straight.
Yes.
On the minutes, I'm not included as a committee member.
Yes, we are still working towards fully onboarding you. And so that will be taken care of with city staff.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so Ms. Youngblood.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Russell City Steering Committee members, chair, vice chair, and other Leaders, the update from the researchers, they met with the Russell City Leadership Committee on Friday, March 31st, to provide a presentation and an update on the research thus far. I do believe that Chair Knowles sent that presentation to everyone here earlier today. They will be making a similar presentation with some slight updates, I do believe, at the next public meeting. And I wasn't able to attend the meeting on the 31st because I was in a strategy session for the city. And so I'd love to give the opportunity for any of the leadership members that were there to share their reflections on the findings thus far.
Prior to me, so if I could just request that to be removed from the spotlight first. Thank you. And then, Tony, I see your hand is raised, so I'll go to you first, and then I will share some reflections from that meeting.
Okay, I did get a response from Liz regarding the documents that I sent for Charles and Isabel Sanders. And she finally got back to me just today to let me know that she had sent the information or the documents over to the map department. And my question is it a telephone number that I can call for the map department? And if there is, who would I talk to in the map department regarding those documents?
I think the question that I would, if it's okay for me to answer that question with a follow-up question, I think the question that I'd have for you is, what information are you seeking from our map department? Just to be clear for anybody that's watching the meeting, I think she's referring to our GIS person. His name is Tim Loans, and he is actually with our IT department, but he handles our geographical imaging system, and he is helping to draw out a map of Russell City and connecting the documents that have been identified through the research and through individuals like yourself, turning them in so that there could be an interactive map. But what information would you be seeking? Because I don't know if you would have, I don't know if you would have it, just asking.
Oh, yeah. What I'd like to know is how much land the documents represent.
Okay, I don't believe that he would have that information, but let me take that question back to see if I can get some clarity. And if it's not from Liz or George Bargainer, I'll find out where we might be able to get that information. But I do remember that being a question that was asked before, and Liz wasn't able to necessarily tell that from the deed documents that were supplied. And I don't think that Tim Loans, who is, like I said, with IT, he wouldn't know that either. But now that I understand what your question is, I'll see if there's a place where we can find that information.
Okay, if I might suggest to you, why don't you have them start by going to the Alameda County Assessor's line and see if they can put the information in there.
Okay. Thank you.
It's called a parcel viewer.
Right.
That might be able to find that information out.
Thank you. And, you know, Liz may be right, because Tim is using the information that's been supplied to kind of draw the different parcels. So I will start with Tim and see if that information can be found in-house. If not, then I will go to the next step. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Velda, we see that you have your hand raised.
Yes, I just got this, these documents this morning from Ginny Chacon. So I just have a general question, trying to play a little catch up here. Is this just laying the template for the framework for which the blanks will be filled in for the Russell City families and descendants, or is this the actual document that's supposed to have the data in it?
Is that a question for me?
So if I could just, I'm gonna help guide this discussion. So Velda, As a new alternate member of the steering committee, we were not involved in the emails that Jenny sent to you. And so we don't know what information she shared with you. So I would just kindly ask that we will circle back with you to provide a more formal onboarding process.
Thank
So that you have some of these questions answered. Because I don't know, I'm not sure what you're referencing because I don't have it in front of me and I wasn't copied on those messages. And based
It's
on the
the
face
Russell
that
City,
Jenny is
research
making, I'm not really sure if she may be aware of what documents you're referencing either.
It's the Russell City Research Report and today's agenda.
Okay, that's the document that I sent out with the agenda.
Yeah.
And that is the presentation that the researchers put together. And it was my understanding that they were going to be joining us today for this meeting in preparation for the public meeting on the 26th. And clearly there was a bit of a misunderstanding.
Sorry, can I raise my hand? Okay. Let me know if you want.
So a couple of things. One, before we, the researchers are on the agenda because I believe that our steering committee is owed an explanation as to why the researchers did not show up for the public meeting at the end of March. Or at least some additional information as to what happened. I'm aware of it and I can share it with the group, but I will defer to city staff first. And second, then we can go into what was discussed related to the presentation. So Jenny, you have your hand up. I'll defer to you first.
Yeah, no, my understanding, because I was in that meeting, was that they were going to be attending the public meeting and that now logistically too, that the steering committee would put them on the list and invite them. So otherwise, that's what we discussed at the meeting, is that the steering committee and even to the city is taking a step back as well, will handle the correspondence to directly communicate with them. But I can also explain as well as in the last meeting that was it 31st, when we met city staff with the leadership group, we brought up that there was just a misunderstanding in who was going to send out the correspondence, and definitely we are aware and very sorry that this happened. So the agreement moving forward was that the group would, and so what we got from the meeting as well was basically just some of the updates on what they had, which was sent to you, essentially on some of the titles and some of the information too, in response to some questions from the committee regarding census data or like birth certificates. And so what they wanted to communicate was just that how that information would be is not really relevant to the scope of the work and the nature that it would take. You'd have to have specific names for searching. It would be like a really long process where the outcome wouldn't necessarily provide any more information related to the deeds and the payments, which is what they were contracted for. And so moving forward for the public meeting, they were going to give a summary about the media to date, about what have they found in their summary data.
Jenny, I'm going to say that my recollection of what was discussed is quite different than the summary you just provided. I'm going to hold off on providing my recollection and our agreements until I call in the other committee members. So I'm going to go to Michael V. Johnson first.
Yes, so my recollection, and as the agenda for the public meeting will attest, is that they were to be a panelist on that agenda, along with the other panelists that were on the agenda on that evening. When you go back and look at the actual agenda, you will see that they are listed along with everyone else. And they were invited. So we wouldn't have put them on the agenda unless there was some expectation about them actually participating on the agenda, which they were on the agenda. And so part of the challenge is that there are a number of members of the public who also had that agenda and had an expectation that they would be presenting during that public meeting. And so it felt primarily to the public as well as to us that somehow we had dropped the ball about getting them to where they needed to be for that evening. So that's my recollection, and I think that the agenda will bear that out.
I don't think anyone's disputing the agenda. I think it was the logistics around informing and coordinating with them. So I think there was, and that's what we talked about in the meeting, last one was moving forward just to make sure that they were on the list for all of your guys' work in general. So that's the one.
And then my second question, and then I'll leave, at least I'll put my hand down, is, so what is the expectation about how we will be communicating with the consultants, whether it is the series group or whether it is the researchers? Are you all to be the conduit for us to talk directly with those consultants, or can we reach out to them directly ourselves?
You can reach out to them directly. So part of our work that we'd hope to achieve, that maybe we can still do that with the facilitation of the Cirrus group, was to identify different communications protocols. And so with the onboarding of your selected facilitator, I think that might be a good first step to talk about who contacts whom at what juncture, how does the city get informed, how does the city get pinged if there's resources or information or support that you need from us. We are definitely supportive of you communicating directly with the Cirrus group. That is your facilitator. They are your project management team, and also communicating directly with the researchers. The city's involvement simply needs to be in the terms of, like, if there's going to be a change in scope or an expansion, obviously that means that money might be involved. And so that would be a point where the city probably would need to be pinged so we could determine whether or not there's a source of funding to accommodate such a change in direction. But ultimately, it is our goal and desire for you as this leadership group, as a steering committee, to communicate directly with the resources that have been identified to support you.
And then I see Gloria Moore's hand. Gloria?
Yes, thank you. Could you give us an overview of what this document means? I'm particularly under the concerns. I mean, where are we with this this group, this report? It says that they are likely a couple hundred hours of searching. And then I'm not sure people who could leave likely better off than those. I'm just confused as to what this document represents. What is the expectation? You know, where are we going from here? And I'm just confused.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I just saw this today when you, with the agenda. I would say that this is what they presented to the group, and anybody else is welcome to chime in. And so she, the researcher, was asking, like, here are some of my questions I have regarding the people that were, that we have found the deeds to date. And yeah, it was the issue about fine renters. So that was also her question as well, like, you know, she felt like, okay, so if people wanted to leave, was it the situation that the people that were able to leave, or that had the resources, were able to? And then from this meeting, I know that that was something that was not necessarily agreed with. So she was asking that question. And essentially, and then what was brought up in that meeting was the scope of their work, that if you did want to search and do all these other searches, is really having discussion about what is the scope of their work and what the lack of return on investment and time it would be for the group in general versus also finding, narrowing down, ensuring that like, if that's what you guys want, this is what it would take this amount of hours.
So if I could interject a couple of things, because there are a couple pieces of information that are missing. So there have been repeated requests of the researchers to come back with information about renters. So we know that there are approximately, 205 families that were where eminent domain was exercised. They have told us that they have over 700 deeds that they've recovered. But there is no specific information reflected about what renters were paid. That has been asked by members of our committee multiple times. And so that is what was asked again in this meeting with the researchers. Now, Liz Moran Sanchez and I were the two that were present in this meeting with the researchers. What the researchers said is they were given a specific scope of work by the city that we did not create as a steering committee. And so if they were going to really look at all of the records related to land transactions, they would need hundreds of hours, they would need additional research time to really kind of piece things together. And so one of the things that we stated was we did not create this scope of work. And so if we are really going to, it's concerning that you still have no information about renters when we've been asking for it multiple times. And you cannot come back to our committee and say that you have no information about what renters were paid, what any of the business owners were paid, what churches were paid. There's no other information that you have except for, the 700 and some odd deeds that you've been able to get from the county. And so that is, some of the additional detail that's captured, or that's what is referenced in their PowerPoint with regards to the hundreds of hours that are needed in addition to what they've done so far, because we've expected them to come back to us with additional information related to renters. So Gloria, your hand is still up. Do you have a follow-up question?
Well, thank you for that explanation, Aisha. I'm just concerned that how long has this contract been in place? And we seem to have the same discussion repeatedly about, like you're saying, the renters. And now it sounds like the contract that they currently have is not going to get us the information that we need. So what are we going to do? How are we going to move forward? Because, we are all concerned as elders that we're not moving forward. We're kind of stagnant.
Yes.
So I'd like to know, how do we move this forward? And I certainly would not favor expanding their scope of work just based on what we've gotten to date. We need somebody who's going to really, I understand they are working on this project part-time. We need somebody who's going to be devoted to getting us the information that we need so we can move forward. And they're being paid handsomely.
Yes.
So
thank you.
Thank you. I'll lower my hand.
Thank you. Regina, I do see your hand. I'm going to go to Michael V. Johnson first.
Thank you for that. So here's where I'm struggling as a committee member viewing this. The first thing is that think about the process that we were put through to select Ceres as our consultant after the steering committee started. I would have never hired a consultant who needed to ask me, the client, what the scope of work is and what it should look like to deliver the information that's being provided to the committee. one of my original concerns when we discovered who the participants were or who this consultants were is that they weren't capable, nor did they have the expertise to do this work. That was my first concern. My second concern was once we realized that they didn't have the background to do what I would consider to be demographic research. These people are not demographers. I don't think they know the first thing about doing anything related to demography. And the work that we're asking them to do is specifically how do we uncover who was there and how and what transactions took place. So so those were my biggest concerns originally. Then I saw the budget for a contract that got signed in September. And when we first saw the researchers, they had submitted invoices for a whopping total of 70 hours from September all the way through December. And I'm sitting there going, so you mean to tell me that in 4 months of work, all that they put in to do whatever work that they came up with was 70 hours, which led to them, one, confessing to us that they were doing this on a part-time basis, that they have careers as professors at San Francisco State. And to date, we've seen these two presentation materials that they've shown us. And if you even just look through the presentation materials that are here, you will see that the quality of work is subpar. Even in this presentation that they sent to us, there are slides in this document that are actually duplicates. And so the time that's needed to do the work, the effort that's been put into the work, the ability to have the skill set to do the work, and now they want to ask for more hours so they can do it on a part-time basis, it's extremely troubling for me from my perspective, given the lack of results and information that they have produced to date.
Yes, it's disrespectful.
Thank you, Michael. Regina, I said that I would call on you next, and Deborah, I see your hand. So you will go after Regina.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify one part of the conversation. So, well, maybe two. So part of the scope of work was for them to identify individuals who were displaced by the redevelopment initiative that forced individuals out of Russell City. That's the scope of work. In order to do that, they are looking at census records, deeds, etc., to identify individuals who lived in Russell City, understanding that deeds are only going to get you individuals who were owners of land or owners of businesses. In addition to those records and the Board of Supervisors records, they are also looking at hundreds and hundreds of media sources, because that is a way of identifying individuals who may have lived and worked in Russell City at that time. And that is their proxy for identifying individuals who may not have been owners, but instead renters. I don't know that there is a way to create a 100% inclusive document of absolutely everyone, but their attempt is to get as close to that as we can via these public sources that would represent the deeds, the Board of Supervisor records, as well as the media sources, and then cross-referencing that information with any payment information that can be found by going through the Board of Supervisors records, since they acted as the redevelopment agency, and any other records that can be found to identify how much individuals were paid. So when they're talking about additional hours, they're not talking about additional hours to find renters. I think they are referencing a request that was made in a previous meeting that they not just focus on individuals who lived and worked in Russell City at the time of redevelopment. There was a conversation related to us maybe having them go back for several years to see land changes that may have occurred because people proactively chose to leave the area before redevelopment happened. And so that, I think, is what they're focusing on when they talk about additional hours. But the scope that was initially created, while may not be 100% sufficient, was intended for them to find information on individuals that were not just owners, but individuals who lived and worked in Russell City at the time.
Does that conclude your comments?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Deborah?
Okay, I have said from the very beginning, I don't understand why there's a problem getting information. If people were paid money, they wrote a check. So you're a public agency and you don't keep records. They have records of presidents going back in the 1800s, and you can't go back to 1963 and find out who was paid. This is really ridiculous. Plus, they want us to help them do their research. I'm not helping them doing anything. They're being paid a salary and they should show up for the meetings and they should do their job. And at this point, I don't know what the problem is with them, because this makes the second meeting that they have not showed up for. So this is really, no, I don't agree with this. This is just too much. Too much.
Thank you, Deborah. Cindy Torres, and then Carolyn.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I agree with everything that all the steering members have said so far. Even stating their intention of what was expected of them, they're obviously not doing it. It is disrespectful that we are continuing to even have them as part of this process. They need to be let go. We need to get people that will serve us better. I don't know why we're wasting the time even discussing this anymore. Intentions mean nothing. We need action, and we need accurate research. I don't know how else anyone here can say it any better. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
I love that. I know you're gonna call, sorry, I'll let you call on me.
No, who did I miss? Carolyn, sorry.
Yeah, I
Yes,
agree. Can you make that a motion to terminate the contract with the researcher? Immediately. You missed 2 meetings, not delivered. I make a motion to terminate their contract.
well, I do have some additional information because not all of the information about the first meeting that they missed has been disclosed tonight. So the first meeting, so the
I'm
missing.
sorry,
Oh,
I have
my
a
apologies.
motion, and are you
Yes.
saying you want to delay the motion for
No.
more information for me to reconsider whether I want to make that motion?
Yes,
So
yes.
Okay, I will hold for
Thank
momentarily.
you.
Otherwise, it's my motion.
Thank you. The researchers were not present at the public meeting because they did not receive an invitation to attend. And an apology was received from Ms. Chacon at the meeting that was held on March 31st. I thought that Ms. Chacon I thought that Jenny was gonna say that in this meeting. And so a request was made that moving forward in the future, that when the researchers are on any agenda for meetings, so we discussed in this meeting that the researchers would be on agendas to give us updates as a steering committee, because this is an ongoing agenda item that the public will hear and that we will hear as a committee. This is regular business. It's reoccurring business that we will hear, number one. Number two, that the researchers receive a subscription to the stack, the way that we receive updates for the meetings, for the public meetings. As someone who is signed up for the Russell City Reparative Justice Steering Committee project mailing list, the researchers should also be aware of what the public is receiving, just as we receive the stack subscription e-newsletter. And number three, the researchers should receive an Outlook meeting invitation from staff, city staff, and an email confirmation confirming their attendance at the meeting. That was discussed during our meeting on March 31st.
No, I sorry, I beg to disagree. I did, that is correct, where I was like, we talked about the logistics of the meeting communications, and then it was agreed that the steering committee moving forward would put them on distribution list. And also too, this also goes back to, we are taking a step back from the committee.
Right. And so I'm just going to ask, Jenny, I'm going to ask to pause because I wasn't done talking, number one. Number two, I did express on behalf of the committee how upset people were that the researchers did not show up for the public meeting. So it was a blessing, and it was very positive that our elders were able to speak during the meeting. But what did I share? What did I share with you and the researchers the next day when I talked to my father about the researchers not showing up? And the folks that called my dad, the next day about the researchers not showing up weren't happy. Nobody was happy about not hearing an update from the researchers that everybody was anticipating. You know what that means for people who've been waiting over 60 years to hear what happened? That just, it brings up a lot of trauma. And so if we are participating in this process and trying to create trust with the city of Hayward, I don't know how we move forward rather than take steps back. And we are volunteers as steering committee members. You're full-time staff. I'm on other committees. And if we were to request that staff communicate with researchers who are getting paid over $31,000, that's a simple request. That is a simple request. I'm a little embarrassed that we are here as descendants and former residents of Russell City. And it's not too much to ask that someone can receive an email to confirm their attendance at a steering committee meeting. That's embarrassing. Carolyn, I'm going to go back to you.
Same motion. I mean, I can't speak about the city. I think they're here, but we're asking the folks who did this to us to actually take care of us well. So manage our expectations, period. I mean, and I think we came into it with open hearts and minds. You got descendants of people who were dogged by your employers, and you all had opportunities to do us well. And there have been so many where you have not. Researcher that no one asked for, that is clearly not qualified, and all I hear are defenses of them and excuses. They're not qualified for this work. They got an inside contract, period. You know it, I know it, everybody knows it, but you don't have to admit it on tape. But that's the truth. And you continue to defend them and defer, and you should have done it, and you should have emailed. You all are here because your city agreed to us. And this is how you build community with us. This is how you build goodwill. No, but we expected something different, but we're getting what my ancestors got. I just want you to know that. Whether or not they have Black and brown faces on it, doesn't matter. It's the same city of Hayward. And you can do better. You can resist us and fight us and blame us and shift it and all that kind of stuff, but it's wrong. I would like that team removed. Period. That's my motion.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor.
I see Michael Johnson,
Yes.
number 2's hand.
Michael D. Johnson.
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
I don't want to get in the way of the motion, but I mean, where are they at? I mean, they did the research. We've been asking for them. I remember from like a while ago, we asked for them. So someone on the city, okay, I see Regina, I think Jenny, can either one of you just, maybe I missed it, because I was sitting here, listening. Why haven't we had them at a meeting? Why have they not showed up at any meeting? We were talking about them realistically over a month ago, 2 months ago. So why aren't they at any meetings? Why haven't they been at a meeting so far? Are they going to be at the next? They should be at a meeting at least once a month. They should be at a meeting. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me that they haven't been at any meetings, and we asked to meet them. I think it's like 2 months ago. So what, they just don't want to come, then they refuse to come to the meeting? That's why I want to find out what's the gist of this. Are they just saying, no, we're doing our research, we're not coming to no meetings? Let's just keep it real. Is that what they're saying? Regina or anybody from the city, that what are they saying? They just ain't coming? Just come on, let's keep it real.
No, they have been at 2 meetings, one with your leadership team and one with the steering committee. You may have missed that meeting, but their failure to attend the last public meeting and this meeting, I wasn't aware that they were supposed to be at this meeting, but their failure to attend these 2 meetings is on the fault of the city.
Okay.
And if you need somebody to take responsibility for that, I will take full responsibility for that. This is a ball that we dropped. And what we need to do is tighten up our understanding of who's communicating with whom. As I mentioned a little bit earlier in the conversation, would be tremendously helpful if we have that conversation about communications protocols, because when things are not clear, somebody always thinks somebody else is doing something. And so for me and for improved relations going forward, I think it is important sometimes to have those structures in place and an understanding of who's going to do what and when, so that we can make sure that the person that is responsible for doing whatever it is doing it, and that they can be held responsible. But I won't go back and forth and talk about the qualifications of the researchers to do this work, and whether or not they had an inside contract, et cetera. I do know that they are adhering to the scope of work that they were given, and their failure to report out in these last 2 meetings has been on the city. The quality of the report out, that is for you to determine. We want to make sure that you have the information that you need to make informed recommendations. And so I will leave, the rest of this discussion to you as the committee that has been voted into leadership to make these decisions.
All right, thank you.
We have a motion on the floor. Carolyn, I haven't forgotten about the motion. There are 2 hands, Michael V. Johnson and then Marion. Or Marion and then Michael V. Johnson. Marion first, then Michael V. Johnson.
Thank you. I'm listening to this conversation, and from my perspective, whether the ball was dropped or not, the researchers do have knowledge of the meetings that we have, to my understanding. And for them not to show up continuously to the full body of this committee, not just leadership, is, as Gloria said, disrespectful, because we're taking our time to try to decide what it is that should happen for the residents and the descendants of Russell City. We have not received enough information. We have nothing to work with, and it's hampering us, preventing us from moving forward. We shouldn't have another meeting where we have to sit and discuss why professionals, they say, are not showing up. We have things that we need to do. And because they're not showing up, we're having this conversation. And as a professional, you show up, period. You show up for work. I'm sure they're going to their jobs. This is just as important. I support Carolyn's motion. I second that.
Thank you, Marion. So there is a motion on the floor and an official second. So this is officially discussion now. So I'm going to go to Michael V. Johnson and then Deborah Harris.
So can you all see the screen?
Yes.
It is a screen of the contract with this vendor.
Oh, wait, no, we see the presentation.
Okay, hold on. Let me stop sharing and reshare. Okay, so now I'm going to reshare the screen. And I'm going to share the actual contract with this vendor. Part of the problem is that if you don't know where you're going, then any road will lead you there. And when I first saw this contract, I pointed it out immediately. What are this consultant's deliverables? These are the deliverables that were written by the city, and as you can see here, signed off by Daniel McClare, who's executive director, and Kelly McAdoo, and approved as to form and procedure by the city attorney, that everything in this contract was copacetic, that it was accurate, that it was good. Now, when you go back to the deliverables, the problem starts right there at the deliverables. Please read with me. The deliverables that this consultant was given was to present findings to the city staff and the Russell City Advisory Group and submit a final report, which will include the name of the inhabitants of Russell City at the time of, and then it stops. So if these were the deliverables that the city set before this contractor, it doesn't even tell them what it is that they're supposed to be doing. The name of the inhabitants of Russell City at the time of. That's the deliverable. That's what's in the contract. Nothing. Nothing's in the contract because there's nothing there that says this is what they're supposed to do. So literally, this contractor can deliver us nothing.
Nothing.
And get paid for it.
Yep.
That's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a city that signed this and gave them this deliverables that allows them to do nothing. And get paid for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're working at. I don't believe there's been any amendments. I don't believe there's been any updates. I don't believe there's been any changes. And if this is what the deliverable is for this consultant, then guess what we're going to get? Nothing. That's what we're going to get. and we're gonna pay $32,000, $31,900 for the privilege of a consultant delivering a deliverable that requires them to give us nothing. And that's what the contract is. That's what the contract is signed as. And that is what the city attorney says is approved according to form. That's what we're dealing with right now. And that's where we keep going around in circles because they don't have anything to deliver. There's nothing that the city can hold them accountable to for the deliverables that have been set in writing as to what they're supposed to deliver. Absolutely nothing.
Michael, does that conclude your comments
It does.
for this item? Thank you.
Mhm.
So Deborah Harris, I'm going to go to you first, and then Regina, I see your hand raised. No? Okay. So Deborah Harris, and then Tony, and then Velda, and then Carolyn. I haven't forgotten about you. I know we still have a motion and a second on the floor.
Okay, I think, I feel that by not having this information, even when they said they had retrieved some information, it was all sent to the city. We never got any copies or any information as to what they had as far as deeds or any of that. And so, you know, it's something just to keep us going. It's just like when we had the meeting, the meeting when the city mayor was on, you know, he was asked, what's the timeline? Oh, just do your research. We want it thorough. Well, that doesn't tell me shit. Tell me what time, how many days I have to get this completed. And everyone seems to be doing the same thing. I don't need your resume, where you live, where you went to school. That's not what we're here for. We're here for Russell City. And so whatever we talk about should be related to Russell City, the people who live there and their descendants. And so right now, I'm in agreement with Carolyn. Fire their butts. I'm done. Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Deborah. All right, who did I say was next? Tony and then Velda.
Yeah, that contract follows along with this red light, green light exercise they put us through. If that city manager signed that, he signed it following what his little exercise was telling us, that the red light is for us asking for money. And it stops there. So that's why they didn't put anything on there, because they don't want us to know. I'm finished.
Thank you, Tony. All right, Velda.
Thank you. As you know, I'm coming in late in this process, so it seems to me that I'm not sure how many meetings have preceded for the committee and the city, but as everyone, having been in many meetings in our own professional lives, it sounds like there is no defined relationship framework protocol set up, which I heard earlier in the meeting. I'm on telephone, I'm not on video, so I'm not sure who's saying what. But my question is, it sounds to me from the comments that this contract was written in the blind. I have a big question as far as what are the stakeholder responsibilities for the committee in terms of whenever this contract was written, whenever the RFP was written, was not the committee part of that process, or was this process in the blind? And so that just goes back to the bigger question of more squirrely things are going to pop up during the course of this project. And so the clear thing, from 39 years of contracting that I've done on very large projects, you definitely have to have relationships and roles clearly defined. And this is something that is not a gray thing, that both parties agree to and sign off on, and that will eliminate going around the circle, around and around, with no positive results. I'm done. My comments are in.
Okay, thank you, Velda. Let me just make sure I haven't missed anything.
I'm sorry, that was a question though. I probably did not make that clear. That was a question. Was the committee involved at all, or was this contract and everything related to it in the blind, where the committee was not involved before it was issued?
My apologies, I misunderstood. I thought you were making a point. I'll defer to Ms. Young, to Regina, to answer that question.
Yes.
The assistant city manager, sorry, since you're on the phone.
No worries, no worries. No, the committee was not involved in the original scope of work, which is part of the reason why the researchers paused their work for a time, because they wanted to get some initial deed identification, et cetera, started. But their reason for the pause, so it was referenced earlier that they did a whopping 70 hours of work between September and October, or whatever the time frame was, or January. But they wanted to pause because they wanted the input of this group on refining that scope of work. So they were trying, and this is not a defense, this is the actual rationale that that they used going into this project, that they wanted to get the hard documents, which would typically be part of a search like this, but then they wanted to engage with the steering committee once it was formed to get your input on how they should proceed with research and ways that they could change the scope of work. So, I mean, I think it is reasonable that they would want this committee's input on their scope of work and enhancing it, suggesting other ways within it that they could get at the information that you are seeking. There was, after they attended your first steering committee meeting, a discussion similar to the one that we just engaged in about the contract. There was a revised scope of work that was drafted and communicated for feedback. I don't recall that we got any feedback, but it was clear in the conversation with the researchers then that the city is not intent on them providing nothing but deliverables, as indicated in my earlier comments, that the absence of the finishing of that sentence does not mean that we don't expect them to deliver a report that explains to us what happened to the inhabitants of Russell City at the time of the redevelopment and the forced relocation.
Yes, and also too, regarding the committee had not been formed yet. So that was another thing too. So, but that's why they paused as well, to wait for the committee to form so that they could get the input. And they are, I understand, writing the first of a draft report of 2 that they wanted to, but before also too, it's not that they're not qualified. They want to get the input. They don't want it to be just that they're coming in and doing research and telling you. They want to engage the former residents, especially and that was discussed in that meeting as well, is, well, given that Alameda County waived the requirement to take funding from the federal government to create relocation plans, which would document the payments, that would there be a possibility then of maybe pursuing interviews and conversations with former residents to identify those renters who would not be on deeds?
So it sounds like that's a little gray, that in terms of there was no input received from the steering committee in the drafting of the contract, but it sounds like that is still an option and something that that company is looking for. Is that what I'm hearing? Input from the steering committee
Correct.
on the the metrics of their contract, which is standard stuff. Whoever the stakeholders are, they put in their part. It's the negotiation part, and everybody comes to a consensus. It sounds like to me that hasn't happened, and it sounds like taking that farther, that those metrics and those relationships and how the two entities are going to work together is extremely important in the beginning of any venture, especially something like this. And if it's not pinned down, if it's not defined, then every meeting will start looking like an endless do loop for whomever is.
Yes, thank you, Velda, and thank you for providing some clarification, Regina and Jenny. We have a couple more hands up. Gloria and Deborah.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. I think we've given this sufficient discussion to take a vote. This contract is obviously a contract of non-performance. I, for one, want to move on and, expedite this process. We need to move forward. So I'm not sure what's required to vote on this. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a quick question of clarification. Michael B. Johnson, if you have the contract up, and maybe this is also a question for Regina, what does it say with regards to the terms of contracts, the separation or terminating the contract? Do you still have the contract up on your computer?
Yeah, I'm bringing it up now.
Okay.
So here it talks about the deliverables.
Mhm.
Section F talks about the timeline. It says here that this, according to the timeline, was a 8-month window on the timeline. The next section talks about, what the invoicing will be and how that will work. And then it goes into, there is a specific section here in the contract about amending the contract and termination of the agreement. And so if we look at looking for the term section, give me a moment. Yeah, it says, if through any cause the consultant shall fail to fulfill in any timely and proper manner its obligations, or if the consultant shall violate any of the agreements or stipulations, the city shall thereupon have the right to terminate. And it says anything, talks about a 30-day written notice prior to the effective date of such termination. Was that what you're looking for, Aisha?
Yes, that's
Okay.
that was along the lines of what I was looking for, because I think it is appropriate. Well, I was wondering if, as part, what type of notice they would need to receive, if any, what the terms of the termination would need to be, and if an amendment of the contract would be possible. My question for the committee is, would or is the committee interested in them presenting to or at a public meeting so that the community hears what research they've been doing?
I see
There's a couple hands up.
Yep. Belda, Deborah, and Michael Johnson, number 2. You want to start with Michael Johnson, number 2, Michael D. Johnson?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like to me, the people that signed the contract should be explaining us the deal on the contract. They signed it. If we have questions on the contract, we should be talking to them. They signed the contract. So the lawyer, whoever signed the contract, if we got questions about the contract, I would think they would know because they wrote up and signed the contract. To me, that's one thing that should be done, is that they should explain the questions that we may have. And what I wrote in here is, I wrote into the chat to everybody. I said, so that being said by Michael V. Johnson, shouldn't the people that signed it be in front of us and explaining what the signed contract means? They signed the contract. Nobody on this call, from what I can tell, signed the contract. So how can anybody on here be an expert on what the contract means? I
didn't sign the contract, but I did have a review of the contract, and I must have missed that sentence that was not complete. Knowing exactly what they were supposed to deliver. Sometimes you fill in the blanks incorrectly when reading something. But again, in the conversation that we had with the researchers in front of this body, they were clear about the deliverables that they intended to deliver, and we created a separate scope of work to clarify that. If it would be helpful to present that to this entire body for feedback, then let us know. But you do have a motion and a second on the floor.
So if I could just chime in, and to your point, Regina, then what is very clear is that based on what you just said, that you all are not even following your own contract. Because if you have a separate statement of work, that separate statement of work should have been put forward and signed off on in a written amendment to the existing contract. I have not seen an amendment or a written signature and agreement between the parties on anything other than what was been presented here. So it's one, so there, so, right, so then
it hasn't been executed. It hasn't been executed because we were waiting for some feedback. So it may be a moot point at this point, but right now we're operating under the contract that has been signed. Yes.
Right. I think we have a couple more hands. Deborah was next, then Tony, and then I still see Belda's hand up.
Well, on the contract, if there's no deliverable, we have no contract. What the hell is it? It's nothing. It says nothing. So, I mean, come on, you guys. And you can't give a change order to a contract that says nothing.
You can.
Okay? So please, I don't want to hear that. Get them off, just get rid of them. That's what you do. Just get rid of them.
I see Tony's hand. Thank you, Deborah.
Well, I'm just wondering, if we do get rid of these researchers, are our new researchers having to start from the very beginning? Or will the information that the researchers have done so far be given to our new researchers?
If I can chime in, based on my reading of the contract, it is the city that owns the research that the researchers have done. Right? So whatever work product that the researchers have actually produced, because the city signed the contract with the researchers, they own the rights to all of the research that has been produced thus far.
So in other words, we would start all over again, our researchers.
No, I'm saying that the contract says it is the city that owns the research. So if they left, we would still have the research, and the city has the right to whatever research has been done. So we wouldn't, the city doesn't have to start from scratch because they would own whatever research that has been done to date.
No, I'm asking about we're talking right now about getting rid of the existing researchers.
Right, but getting rid of the existing researchers does not mean we get rid of the work that they've done. The city owns that.
Right, you say
paid
that
for it.
you say that the city owns that, but is the city willing to give it to our new researchers that are not part of the city? Is my question.
The city has already provided access to the research to the steering committee leadership.
Okay, so in other words, we can transfer that information over to our new researchers
Correct.
with
So
no problem.
These are public documents. You know, this is not proprietary information. And so they gathered this information from, you know, publicly available sources, and we are paying them for the work that they have done. Us paying them for that work means that those documents that they collected on our behalf, your behalf, are now ours, free to use in any way that we need to use them. And if you want to turn that over to another researcher, you absolutely could. I will simply suggest that if you are to disengage with this researcher, that you get as much from them before you disengage. It may behoove you to make sure that they come to that next meeting and provide the community with an update so that there isn't a lag in the time with a new researcher getting up to speed. You may want them to provide that initial report of deeds and media sources and findings. Again, so anyone else that picks up the additional scope of work that you want them to take doesn't have to do that.
Right, and that's what kind of where my question was going. Liz has told me that she sent information over to the map department, and I didn't want to toss them out before I got that information and have to wait all over again for that information, because it's very important to me and my family to know exactly how much land we're talking about here.
And not to speak again out of turn, but just to let you know, I have sent an email to Tim Loans in the GIS department.
And I recommend that we hold on to them until we get that information.
Thank you, Tony. Okay, so we have Velda, and then Marion, I see your hand. We still have a motion and a second on the floor. So after Velda and Marion, I'm gonna call for the vote.
Thank you. I would just say that since Michael has the document, it's a perfect opportunity for the committee to go through the document, add anything that is unclear, mark it up, make sure the metrics are as expected and the timelines, because it sounds to me that this is a case of gray areas and balls being dropped. I don't have enough history to know if this firm is incompetent or not, if there's a clear case for dropping them, or if it's a case of a open-ended document that is not clearly defined and with consensus of the committee and the city. So, if you start with a new one, you have to start the RFP process all over again, and that is going to take time, and you have to vet another firm. If that is going to happen, I think the lag time should be the committee looking at the document with a fine-tooth comb, looking at the scope of work and saying, this is what we're looking for, so this process is not repeated with a new, if that's the way you're going to go.
If I could just chime in.
No, but there's people's hands up.
Thank you. Thank you, Velda.
I was just pointing out, Carolyn, that there is Cindy and there is.
Yeah, no, I called on Marion. Marion had her hand up. Thank you, Michael, but you're parliamentarian tonight. Parliamentarian, and I'm gonna call for so Marion, your hand was lowered.
Yeah, I just wanted to ensure that any documents that are provided by the researchers are that everyone on the committee is given access to those documents. Not that they're just encrypted for certain members of this committee. This is a full committee. So we all need to be aware of what is being delivered, what the deliverables are, and we should be able to make a decision as a full committee on the documents that we receive. So when you encrypt documents and don't allow other people to get into the documents, what use is it to the other members of the committee? Thank you.
Thank you. Carolyn, I'm going to go back to you. Cindy, I see your hand.
Yes, I just want a clarification. Regina has said that we should wait until the next meeting where they present what they have done so far in order for us to get that before we terminate them. Do we have to go through that process, or can we get that information regardless of this vote? Because I think it's going to be unanimous that we want to terminate them. So why do we have to wait till then? Why can't we get this information once we let them to go, or do we vote now do we have to amend this to say we're going to terminate them, but not let them know until we get this other information at the next meeting?
So if I could just say, I mean, based on what Michael V. Johnson read, even with the termination, it's a 30-day notice. And so they need to, in an organized, I mean, they just don't leave everything.
Is there an answer there? I don't know.
I mean, I think the answer is we need to double check all of the information that they're handing over so it's in an organized fashion. They need to complete the final report or the report that they're in the middle of writing. We need to verify the information that they have provided already. To Marion's point about the encrypted information that they've sent, they shared information with the city and with the leadership committee via SharePoint. I haven't been able to open it because I don't use SharePoint. So I called the digital manager today to ask her if she could send it in a different way, because that's not a program that I use. So I haven't, it's not something I've looked at yet. So, that addresses that point. So I think there's a closing out process to ensure that we are all receiving complete information, and it's not just something that is left undone. And we have all of the documents that they have, number one, stated they've been working on, and and we have a transition file or a transition report as to, where we can start with the next set of researchers that we select or have a say in selecting.
Carolyn Johnson.
What a waste of an evening. I had 3 other meetings to go to, and we spent all this time on a researcher who's not been a no-show. So I will amend my motion as follows. Terminate the contracts based on the terms, 30-day notice is required, and that we direct the city to not pay any additional invoices until we approve the transition file and access to documents. That is my motion.
Thank you, Carolyn. Marion, do you agree to the amendment of the motion?
I agree to the amendment, and I'll continue with my second.
Okay, thank you.
Call for the motion. Oh, I see Gloria.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask if with that motion, can we add, I'm not sure if it was included, that they be required to submit a final report?
Yes, I said we direct the city to not pay any invoices until we receive a transition folder with all the access and information that's acceptable to us.
But I was suggesting the final report to the committee or final, that's the transition report.
Yes, she called it a transition report. Yes.
Okay.
Transition folder with everything in it that.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So we have 2 steering committee members who are not present tonight, which means that our 2 alternate members will be voting members. Just Michael V. Johnson, is that correct? Yes.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I see no hands. So,
Well,
Carolyn,
technically, from a
Carolyn,
parliamentarian point of view, we have a quorum with 7, so we don't need to use alternates at all
okay,
to cast a vote.
all right. All those in favor, please raise of the motion that's on the floor. It's been moved by Carolyn Johnson and seconded by Marion Johnson. Please raise your hand. Raise your virtual hand, your physical hand. Okay, all those in favor say. All right, thank you. Anyone who is opposed? All right, I'll wait for the hands to be lowered. Anyone who is opposed, please raise your hand now. Michael, I'll just need your help in seeing if I missed. I believe that was unanimous. Did I miss somebody?
There was 2 that are currently opposed. I see Tony Nguyen and I see Kathy Rodriguez.
No, Kathy had her hand up.
Oh, Kathy, are
Had her
you?
hand up earlier. I saw it raised for the,
Okay, got it. Then it's just Tony that's voted no.
okay. And then anyone who would like to abstain, please raise your hand. Kathy's hand was up for yes, so 1 abstention. So the motion passes with 1
no,
no and 1 abstention.
1 abstention.
All right, thank you. Okay. Regina, do you have enough information in order to move forward with the termination of the contract?
I think so. Having the video of this meeting will help us to get the exact language of your motion so that we can make sure that we follow through on all of the points.
Okay, thank you. All right. So the next item on the agenda was a check-in on the budget. And actually, before we move over to a check-in on the budget, Kathy Rodriguez, I see that your hand is raised. And welcome. Good evening and welcome to the meeting. Or it's lowered now.
Yeah, I don't know how it got up there.
Okay, all right. Just checking.
Thank
And Velda, your hand is raised. Is that by accident or do you have a question?
Yes, I am absolutely a little bit confused here. I thought Kathy Rodriguez and myself were all. And then I heard that alternates don't vote.
So as a parliamentarian, let me just give you how it works. We originally, when we started with 11 members with a need for a quorum of 6 of the 11 to be in attendance. When we expanded to 13 with 2 alternates, the quorum necessary to take a vote now became 7 instead of 6. So as an alternate with a quorum that has a minimum of 7, there is no need or requirement for an alternate to vote because we have the quorum with the actual voting members who are not alternates to conduct the vote. It is only when we don't have a quorum of 7 that alternates are needed to vote. So tonight, we have more than of the voting members. We have a quorum. Alternates votes are not necessary for us to proceed with the vote.
Well, I must have heard wrong, because I thought I heard that Kathy Rodriguez.
I'm sorry, I don't know what you heard or where you heard that from. But 7 is the requirement for a vote.
No, I was talking about tonight. I thought Tony Wynn and Kathy Rodriguez were the last 2 votes.
No, Tony Wynn has always been a voting member.
No, not Tony Wynn. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm not being. I thought Kathy Rodriguez voted tonight.
Kathy Rodriguez said that she put her hand up, not knowing that it was up. I think that's what I heard her say.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Michael. We'll move on to the next agenda item and just check in with Jenny to see if there are any budget updates.
Yeah, I have something here, and then I guess also too, once we get to Saris as well, I can provide a city staff the data, so moving forward with the treasurer, they can provide the updates as well. So can I project or share the screen? Someone can give me the access.
Yeah, give me a second, I'll give you the access. Okay, you should have access now.
Okay, so I will share a screen. Okay, here. So for those of you that are new here, so you guys see this is the budget. I need to enlarge it. Essentially, we had like 60,800 and something available last time that was not encumbered or saved for other budgets, for other consultants or expenses. So the only difference in the last budget, and then I guess I'll have to do a check-in into our financial system to see how much has been spent to date with the consultants. But the only thing I changed was adding the Saris consultant contract and encumbered, meaning this is what their contract is valued at $45,000. So of unrestricted funding right now that's not allocated, we have $15,875 left. So then that is, the group can discuss how they would like to, use those funds. But for now, this is the funds that, give you an overview as well of, I know the request when I showed this last time was to kind of give more of a picture of there's citywide funding that has been put aside before the committee was formed, and also with this project and then moving forward. So just to give you a photo as well, like this is the Russell City picnic items from this past fall. And also letting you know that none of the in-kind donations of the picnic facilities are reflected. That was another question as well. And then the discovery period, which was when we had Circle Up to facilitate the development of this committee. That was in here. And then also the researchers. And then now as a committee has formed, the expenditures, which are for the Saris contract, $45,000, which is encumbered here. And the remaining funds, which include the balance from the Circle Up who facilitated the first 3 meetings of 50, which was 679. So now we have 15,875 left. And potentially we may have, I know Regina discussed this before, and we discussed at the steering committee. Regina, chime in, is it 30,000 that we requested for the next fiscal year?
Correct.
Yes, so this does not include for our fiscal year, which starts July first that additional potential, that $30,000 request. And also to let you know that the money that was from the Russell City Energy Center, that money has, was approved as I mentioned last time by the city council in February. And over my vacation, it was wired and is in, it was received. So the money is there. So which is what the money for the part of the money of the Sarah's contract will go to.
Hey there, a couple. Thank you, Jenny.
I have a question.
Michael B. Johnson.
Yes, so quickly, with the $679 that was not spent on Circle Up and the $20,300 that remains without receiving the remaining invoices for Center on Juvenile and Criminal Justice. Let's just say, for example, that there were no additional invoices submitted, but we know that there probably will be. But if there weren't, then that 20,300 and that 679 should be added to the 15,875 that should be made available to the steering committee. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just wanted to be sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Any additional questions? No. Okay. All right, Jenny, is there a way that you would be able to share the budget with us so that we just have?
I will email it out to all of you. Is that okay? So it's to the group at large?
Yes, thank you. And then I think once the series group gets started, then we'll be able to develop a regular flow of updates so that we're receiving regular budget updates. So our last item on the agenda is an introduction to this series research group, or the series group. We are joined by Aisha. Oh no, not is spelled. I feel like it's
Aisha.
Seeing my name, but it's not pronounced the same way. So Aisha. Welcome, Aisha.
Thank you.
And so I don't know, I know that this was a point in the meeting where we were going to invite the city staff to exit the meeting, but I will invite the city staff to share any information about the series group or any information that is required that the cities share right now about this, about our new agreement with the series group. And then we were going to spend some time speaking as a group, as a team, separate from the city.
I would just,
Sorry about that.
no, I would just add that for the series, we're really excited to have them. Dr. Kirby Lynch had to take care of a personal matter tonight, but Aisha is here. But definitely this was something that was part of your input when we presented the draft of the RFP, the scope of the work, which allowed you guys to give feedback and input into what you were looking for, and even to select and provide feedback on what potential vendors and contractors to send this to, and also that the leadership team was involved in the review and the selection of this contract. So wanted to also make sure that, remind you guys about that, as well as that this process was, we were here and we provided your feedback. And this was somebody that even Michael V. Johnson provided recommendations for. So, and so as far as our role goes, like I said, our original goal was always to take a step back once the governance structure was in place. and have a space for you guys for it to be neutral, and that you guys could go through the process of developing your recommendations. As far as experience goes, I can have Aisha speak for themselves, but they're very impressive. They have very strong background, especially Dr. Lynch, in doing reparative justice work across the Bay Area and the country. I mean, working in Vallejo, Richmond, San Francisco. So they're very familiar with this work. And what was also very impressive as well, for all of us who met with them, is their knowledge of the different types of recommendations that when we talk about harm done.
Jenny,
Yeah.
we are on a limited timeline, and so I appreciate your overview, but I'm going to ask that you wrap this up so that we can spend time with her as a steering committee.
Okay, that's fine. So
Thank you.
Aisha, there you go.
Ms. Youngblood, do you have anything to add?
Nothing more to add, just hopeful that this is going to be a great engagement for you and the CERIS group, and the city is here to be of support when necessary. And part of that, I know you mentioned, I just want to just put a fine point on it. You said, is there anything that we need to know? Not so much that you need to know, just reiterating some of what Jenny said. Hopefully with the CERIS group, you all will just determine what your communications protocols will be. And then you will let us know when you need us to be present at a public meeting or a working session. And then, we'll be prepared to support at that time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shall we disengage?
Yes, thank you for joining us this evening, but you are excused. We will see you at the next public meeting on April 26th.
Thank
And if
you.
we have any questions, we'll see you via email. Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you all for having us pop in today. And I'm sorry again, Kirby's not here. So I will represent the best that I can.
Well, we are grateful you are here. The floor is yours. This space, we are happy to share this space with you. We welcome to the meeting. Welcome to this space.
Thank you.
Michael V. Johnson and Deborah, please feel free to
yeah, I can just chime in real quickly. My introduction to their group was at the meeting that took place at Mills College. I was on that call. I listened to all of the presenters, and I reached out to 3 or 4, including the CERIS group and Kirby Lynch, and said, hey, we're doing something here in Russell City. I think there's an opportunity for you all to compete for an opportunity to help us in this work. Kirby and I went back a couple of times in terms of the opportunity that may be available to us. And then the city reached out and said, in addition to the Genius group, which we had already identified, were there any other groups? And we gave her a list of 3, which also included the CERIS group. And they did a bang up job in terms of their presentation, their background and their experience. And as a result, with myself, Deborah, and Aisha, we all basically felt that of what we had heard, that this was a group that we should move forward with. So excited that we reached out, and we're excited that you all were selected, and we're looking forward to working with you.
Thank you. Yeah, we are totally honored, very excited. I am really grateful to have sat into this evening's meeting just to get a feel of what are the dynamics, what are the challenges, where can we step in and support immediately? How do we not repeat some of the same patterns or mistakes? So I really loved today's candid conversation. This is not our first rodeo, so to speak. So, again, I'm sorry Kirby can't be here, but we will be here at all the meetings you need us to be here. and we'll figure out how to make sure that all of that gets communicated. But I'm happy to answer any questions or just talk a little bit about us.
Does anyone have any questions, or maybe you can start talking about the series group, and then if folks have questions, they can chime in.
Sure. So
I
we
have a
are,
question.
oh, of course.
Oh,
I
sorry.
apologize.
My apologies, Carolyn. I didn't see your hand.
It might be great to just go around and introduce ourselves.
Yes.
That would be helpful. I feel like I've gotten to know you all over the last hour and a half sitting quietly, but I would love to hear. No, it's been great. I would love to hear more about all of you, certainly.
I won't go first. I'll let my elders go, but I just wanted them to say hello.
Yes. Who would like to start? Priscilla. We'll
Hi.
start yes, we'll start with you in the top of the screen.
And I'm a voting member of the group, but I'd like to be able to contribute something.
Yeah, she said Hamza was eating up the salad.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Priscilla. I'm gonna go or Deborah. Deborah, you're on mute.
Are we to ask questions or just identify who we are?
Introductions.
Oh, okay. I'm Deborah Harris, and I think I have, I've been with the steering committee for a while, and I think I've seen Aisha. She did a presentation, so looking forward to the work that you guys do. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good to see you again.
Okay.
Thank you, Deborah. Gloria.
Yes, my name is Gloria Moore. I am an 80-year-old elder, former resident and descendant from Russell City. I lived in Russell City for 15 years and look forward to working with your group. Thank you.
Marion.
You put me on the spot. Hi, nice to meet you. I've heard great things about you. I also listened in on the Mills College presentation, was impressed. Glad to be here. I'm a part of the Johnson and the Patterson family of Russell City, also a short-time resident of Russell City. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Michael V. Johnson.
Good to see you again. There are 3 of the Johnson family members on the steering committee. You just heard from my sister, and I think you'll hear from my other sister shortly. Good to see you. Looking forward to working with you as well.
Likewise.
Tony Wynn.
Hi, I'm Tony Wynn. My story is a little bit different. My grandfather is the uncle of Gloria and Deborah. And so we visited there on the weekends to help Gloria's father on the small farm. And I didn't realize that we were affected until I inherited a box. And I was going through this box that my grandmother had since 1945, and she had tucked away in the box the deed to Russell City. So that's how I got involved, because it showed there that they threatened us to default, and we had a check of $2,250 that they paid my grandmother and grandfather. So thank you for helping us out.
Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Carolyn.
Sure, I'm CJ Carolyn Johnson, also a descendant of the Patterson and the Johnson family. I guess if you believe the pro-lifers, I lived in Russell City. My mom was pregnant with me when they were forced out, but I never really lived in Russell City. But yeah, I have memories of the picnics and hearing all of my elders talk a lot about Russell City, not really understanding what happened until I saw the apology. And as you can see, I have no tolerance for madness with them playing with our elders, and that's what they're doing. It's not okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Rodriguez.
Hi, I'm Kathy Rodriguez, and my family lived in Russell City, and also had a cousin who lived, I guess, in the neighborhood part. We lived on West Winton, and I'm here because I'd like to see justice for all families.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Francesca. Francesca, you're on mute.
I think there she
Hi
is.
there. Good evening. Nice to meet you. I'm Francesca. My family was from Russell City. I'm a fairly new council member. This is only my third meeting, but I am looking very much forward to working with you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you also.
Thank you. Michael Johnson, number 2.
Hello? Yeah, I'm Michael Johnson. My grandmother was Lily Batchy. She owned a cafe and a house in Russell City. I'm here to represent her and represent my mom, Dora Johnson. I have an auntie, Barbara Johnson, and they all grew up in Russell City. My mother went to the high school, played on every sports team they had, pretty much. We call her the real athlete of the family. And I'm just here to, to get reparation for my family. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cindy Torres.
Hi, I'm Cindy Torres. I am the descendant of Virginia and Reyes Pacheco. My grandparents, who are no longer with us, and my mom, Mabel Pacheco Torres, and all of her 16 siblings, many who are not with us anymore. I look forward, I'm encouraged by your presence and to move this along. I most want dignity brought to all who are damaged. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Velda.
Hi, I'm a descendant of Buster Brooks and Evelyn Wynn Brooks. Buster Brooks was the mayor of Russell City and founded the NAACP that still stands today in South Hayward.
Nice to meet you.
Is that everyone?
Everyone except you.
Oh, I completely forgot. My name is Aisha Knowles. I am a descendant of Russell City. My dad grew up there and our family had an auto shop called Honest Abe and Sons. And both my grandfather and grandmother had siblings who raised their families in Russell City. So a lot of family members and relatives who lived in Russell City. So I'm also here to see justice done for all of them.
Thank you. Good to
And
see
there are two steering committee members that are not present tonight. One is Liz Moran Sanchez, and the other is one of my sisters, Ayana Knowles.
Great. So I just want to say again that we are honored to have been chosen. Kirby and I don't have any connections to Russell City, but I will say that I am a current resident of San Lorenzo, and I think had no idea there was a Russell City, and that's part of the problem, right? And so while I don't have the same familial connections, it does feel like community connections for me. And so this will not feel quite as personal, but it does feel personal. It feels like it's in my backyard. And so I am honored to be here, to be the wind in y'all sails, however we can, to be the ship so that y'all will be driving it, but we want to hold the container, hold the space, and be a support for you all. And I just want to note that I heard the urgency tonight from all of you. And I know that for many reasons, time is of the essence to get some wins. And that's not lost on Kirby and myself. So we are really looking forward to diving in. I don't want to speak too much on Kirby's behalf, but I do hope that we can get some meetings scheduled really soon so we can figure out, I think, first and foremost, how do we want to be in space together? How do we want to communicate so that nothing gets lost? Things get lost, but how do we minimize that so that we don't lose steam? Because you all have this incredible momentum, and we want to keep the ball moving forward. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I will say, I have a baby, so I have to get my kids down fairly soon. So I'll have to go pick them up from childcare, but I can answer questions till 8.
Our meeting is up until 8. It's not going to be afterwards.
I tried to line it up.
That's the plan.
Make some arrangements.
Michael V. Johnson, I see your hand.
Yes. So one of the questions that I had is, so we've been at this now since December.
Mhm.
And everything that we've done to date has been virtual.
Mhm.
And while there has been opportunity for us to have these discussions, I was wanting to get your thoughts about what value you may see in there being a offsite or a retreat where we brought this group together to really ground us in terms of where we are and how we would like to move forward. Do you see any value in that? Just give us your thoughts.
I do. I see a lot of value in that. One of the things we talk about at Series is that change happens at the pace of relationships, and you all know one another going back for many of you generations, but we're in a different space, and the work is going to require trust between all of you. It's certainly trust with your consultants, which I'm hearing has been historically a challenge at this point. And so I do see a lot of value in coming together in person and breaking bread, and getting a feel for one another, doing some dreaming together. We will need to hear from you. How do we define success? How do we define a win? And it may not be one definition, but how do we hold all of that as our vision and where we're going? We need a vision. I want to know what you all see as being, again, like, how are we going to measure and define the success? And so I like to have those conversations in person. We can certainly do them virtually, but I do see a lot of value in being in one another's space, feeling one another's energy, creating a dynamic that is really built on trust.
Thank you.
Deborah Harris.
Where do you envision these meetings take place? Will we all be present, or would these be individual meetings?
Are you referring to a virtual sort of or the retreat or these
Yeah.
meetings?
What you were just talking about.
So I think that would be up to the group. Kirby and I are happy to do what's best for other folks. We won't be making that decision. I think
Okay.
if we, I don't even think it needs to be necessarily every month in person, but I do think having something where we come together and not just think about the path forward, but celebrate the wins that we've already had. I think it's important to pause, to celebrate and pause and refill our cups so that we can continue to move forward. So where that happens and when that happens, Kirby and I can provide input, but really that will be up to you all, and we will meet you there.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay. Whoever's cooking, that's where I'm going.
Oh, well.
All right.
Oh, well.
We like the restaurant to cater.
Excuse me, that sounds like Deborah's house.
Okay. All right, Miss Deborah, we'll see you there.
Gloria and then Marion.
Yes, I fully support the idea of in-person meetings, but I do live in Los Angeles. So as you schedule virtual meetings, please give me enough advance notice so I can buy a ticket. And I will be up there May 6th if we're, I'm not sure if you're talking about one day or weekends or when. I just like advance notice. Thank you.
Of course, noted. May 6th works.
Well, that night we're having the documentary is going to be shown on May 6th on Saturday evening.
Okay.
But, that weekend. Thank you.
Of course.
Deborah, your hand is still up. Is that from the previous question? All right.
I see Marion's hand.
Up, Marion, my apologies.
And I think that'll be the last one, Aisha?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I was going to mention, thank you, Gloria. I was going to mention that Gloria is in Southern California, so we do have to consider when we are meeting in person that she will have to travel here. So you got me, Gloria.
Thank you, Marion. I appreciate that.
And for our family, we'll be able to attend at anything after the 13th of May for anything that we are doing as a group together. And I think it's very important that we all get together. I appreciate last year's reunion, but I miss the potluck that we used to have originally at the original reunions for Russell City. So I'm hoping somebody's cooking something. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
All right, so
Thank you.
back to Aisha for closing comments and adjourn. Force to adjourn.
Does anyone have closing thoughts before we adjourn the meeting? Deborah?
Yes, was she on the call the whole time?
Yes.
Yes.
Aisha? Oh my God. Okay.
Yes.
So she got an earful, huh?
Yes, she heard you swear.
And you have to pray for my strength in the Lord. I'm really working on it.
That is, sometimes the curse word is the strength from the Lord. Keep other things at bay. Okay, so that's all right.
I was thinking, now we're gonna have to edit it. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Michael V. Johnson, do you have a word to close us out this evening?
What kind of word are you looking for? You don't want me to preach. Now is not the time.
A positive thought to close us out this evening. Go in peace.
Yes, I would say, here's a good word. Every new beginning is another beginning's end. And tonight we ended one relationship and began another. And so we're looking forward to the great things that we're going to see in this new relationship.
Thank you. Thank you for being here this evening, and we'll see you at the next steering committee meeting. Have a good night. Thank you.
you.
Bye.
Night. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.